Hey everyone, welcome to Shifty's Club. Today I'm going to talk about exactly what I promised last time. Sorry I haven't had a video in a while, guys. But trust me, I'm not one of those that will promise to do videos every so often and then do it for a while and then slow away and do one every like 1 or 2 months or quit altogether. And I just wanted to go ahead and tell you guys that the whole time I've been compiling a really, really good episode for the video game players to make up from everything else that I didn't do the whole time during the Georgia Marathons for the trading card game. So guys, I compiled probably one of the best ones for you, so close your eyes and use your imagination. LOL. Of course, you would have gotten that, but let's get to it. I've done the scripts, and I'm just ready to talk about the Pokemon video game. Now, to start off with, I need to note that pretty much all the Pokemon that was seen in the past regionals will probably run around to the next regionals, but with a few similar tweaks to counter metagame strategies, such as Politoed. Most popular Pokemon at regionals. Well, just before then, you could have gotten a Poliwag from the Dream World, hidden ability, and evolved it into a Politoed by the way of leveling up to level 25 into a Poliwhirl, and then trade with the King's Rock to a Politoed. And now that didn't come from script, that's from memory. Notice I do reroute my script just to make it sound good, interesting. And one thing you'll find particularly well is that Poliwag doesn't have the drizzle itself. Only when it levels up into Politoed after being found in the Dream World will it have done. So you can't really do too much there as far as IVs go, but I mean, it takes a lot of work to get IVs down to a range when it comes to the Dream World. It's almost impossible to get a perfect Pokemon from the Dream World unless you know exactly what you're doing. And that even requires tons of patience and a lot of restarts. And Politoed still then might not be the best option. But how did people get it to work at regionals? Y'all probably all remember, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. Politoed's number one sidekick, Ludicolo. Why Ludicolo? Well, for many reasons. Number one, Ludicolo is a water and grass type. That is the biggest reason why. When you're matching a water with a water grass, you're basically taking out damage from moves like Surf by giving a water type half damage, and then even grass again, half damage. So Politoed can still use Surf over and over and over to try to damage the opponent's side, but Ludicolo still doesn't take too much damage. Number two would be probably the biggest combo I've ever seen in Pokemon. Take Ludicolo and give another Pokemon a shot at starting. Alright? Let that Pokemon use Leech Seed or some other way on that Pokemon. True? True. Alright? So there's one way of healing. Then, when Ludicolo comes out into play, it'll get anything that came from that Leech Seed. And even better, Ludicolo keeps the Leech Seed with a Rain Dish, absorbs even more damage from Politoed's drizzle. And even then, you can have it hold leftovers. There's 3 methods of healing. And for the 4th, which is impractical and unusual, and it really takes the died down statistics of whether you want to do it or not, Giga Drain. Now, this is probably the most effective way of keeping Ludicolo up and aware when you're playing with Politoed. And this is why the regionals included so many parties starting off with Politoed and Ludicolo. Because Politoed can right away use Surf for more damage thanks to Drizzle, and a fourth the damage done to Ludicolo thanks to the Water Grass type, plus the healing power of Ludicolo to go by itself to heal. And then, as soon as Politoed gets knocked out, you bring out Kingdra to take its place, or even maybe Lantern. You have so many different options, and most of the time you're going to end up basically giving yourself an edge more often than you are giving your opponent the run for their money. Now, shall I say it this way, most of those parties ended up doing so well that 14 of 16 contestants in the regionals in Georgia, if I'm not badly wrong, 14 to 16 used Politoed and Ludicolo together in a combo. Now, I could be wrong on that, but if my peers have not failed me, because I didn't actually get to go, it wasn't a Georgia, sorry, it wasn't Georgia, it was Florida, this past Florida, and if I'm not badly wrong, which I have a buddy that lives in Florida, and he watched some of the matches, so I asked him about it, and he said almost every one of them started off with the exception of 2. And one of them made it as far as top 8 and drop. I like the idea of Politoed Ludicolo. Even though I already knew the combo, I really didn't think it'd survive in a metagame full of Thundurus and Zekrom. But of course Zekrom's not viable now, but when we had Pokemon that could literally dish out damage, the electric types like Zebstrika doing so much with a lightning rod and really helping overall, and I really like the combos. Not saying that they're the best, but when you look statistically at Politoed, you will see more times than ever you're going to have a special attack at level 50 of about 150 something. If you have perfect IVs and EVs and a helpful nature, then Politoed becomes a force. Now, the held items really depend, and I wouldn't suggest a focus ban on Politoed. Why? Well, because all you really need is Drizzle. Regardless if it gets knocked out or not, is up to, well, the opponent plus luck. And this could be good and bad, because this matchup faces 3 really terrible matchups. And the first one is the most obvious. Once they see a Politoed and a Ludicolo, and chances are they're going to see a Kingdra too, they're going to pull out 1 or 2 Pokemon with the attack Thunder and just start going to school on you. And more times than not, they'll have a flying type move and a moveset of a Pokemon take down the Ludicolo pretty early, because its special defense is usually higher than its defense, and you're screwed. So taking it directly isn't so much great as a indirect isolation between Ludicolo and a separate Pokemon as of being paired with Politoed, because this gives you a 2 types selection. You're choosing between water or water grass. Most of the time you're going to emphasize a poison or flying type matchup on Ludicolo for that reason. Now, does that make Crobat an auto win versus Ludicolo? Heck no. Ludicolo still has ability to use moves such as Ice Beam and Blizzard to take down Crobat straight in his tracks. Now, Crobat will get the first move off unless for some odd reason Ludicolo is holding a Quick Claw and it activates. Other than that, I really don't see it becoming a threat against such parties as that. So, Thunder type or parties with the Thunder attack, or repeat flying type attack, physical wise, a physical flying type attack on a Pokemon with a high attack stat, would generally be the best idea. Now, when I say this, I'll say it with pride pretty much. I am glad to know that there are plenty of other ways Politoed can't really get beat, really. From my own experiences, I have defeated the Drizzle, and I have defeated the combo overall. And probably the second most effective way is changing the weather condition. Now, what's the greatest way to do this? Well, you take a Pokemon such as Tyranitar or Abomasnow, and what you want to do is give them a very low speed. Make sure it has the most devastating speed ever, and pair it with something with Trick Room. Now, really, how would this work? Well, for that turn, your opponent would get the first Drizzle off with a Politoed or Kyogre. Well, Kyogre's not allowed now, so it'd be Politoed. Then, you'd get Tyranitar or Abomasnow to do the Snow Warning or Sand Stream and get the battlefield changed condition-wise and like that. So, the very next move could be a Trick Room to guarantee yourself that, hey, you're going to be taking them down now that your strategy is moved. And what we can verify from this is that there are plenty of ways around the Sand Stream as far as a ground, a rock, or a steel type. Now don't forget there are a few Psychic Ground, Psychic Rock, and no Psychic Rock. Sorry. We'll stick with the best one I have, Claydol. Claydol Tyranitar, probably the most broken matchup against Politoed Ludicolo. Now, most people would argue and say, why? This is a total weakness matchup. And you've got to think, well, for one, it's really not. Because you have the ability to use the Trick Room first, then be able to set up those Pokemon with lower speeds, like, say, Rhyperior from your bench, or you could say something Steel type, like Registeel, just something in general that would be useful against this metagame. Because once they start to be effective, it's very hard for them to win in those conditions. And once Politoed's been threatened to the change in a battlefield condition, such as the worst one being Abomasnow and the Snow Warning, along with an Ice Psychic Pokemon such as Jinx, or even an Ice Ghost like Frostlass. I know most people didn't even know that Frostlass was Ice and Ghost type, but it is. And something like Frostlass, or Jinx in more particular way, you could say to Trick Room and then get it to move in the ice type field, so when it's hailing, your opponent takes damage, but you don't. And in that apparent reason, you can start hitting them back. Now, when I said there was 3 ways, I meant there was 3 ways, or a few ways. Well, 1 is 1, a couple's 2, and few's 3, 4, 5, or how many ever, up to several. So, we're going to take the other few that there are. Well, let's go over what we have already gone over. We've been able to declare that using Drizzle to our advantage is a very good way, such as Thunder. We've been aware that changing the weather conditions is a great way. What is the other best way? Well, you gotta really think. What is the best way? Well, if you were to look at it really well, the best way of doing this is to basically use your stats conditions to their advantage. Now, because it's raining in Drizzle, you can freeze your target and they won't defrost. So your opponent's going to be stuck in a freeze condition without any help. So really, it's a 3-on-4 battle. Now, is there any guaranteed way of freezing the opponent's Pokemon? Of course not. Now, is there a way of stalling them out until you can get them that way? Well, technically there is. And probably the best way is to use something such as, say, any kind of real big ice type moves like, say, a Snorlax with Ice Punch or anything to that particular effect where it could freeze the opponent. And once you have one of them froze, did you know that and I know this isn't the best way, but did you know that they cannot defrost? They don't defrost as easily in rain conditions, even though technically the water would melt the ice. Via that, it raises the kinetic energy around the air particles motion around the ice itself. Don't text me back, say that I'm wrong, and make you think you're a big shot. I have taken too much I've taken physics way too much, and biology, chemistry, I know it all. So, let's just put it that way. Scientifically, water would melt the ice, but to the video game, it doesn't. So, in reality, we're looking at a possible freeze condition on your opponent, forcing them to retreat back, therefore giving you a lot more time to knock out 3 Pokemon and then focus on the 4th one slowly and surely. So, what really good combo do we have of approaching something such as Politoed Ludicolo? Well, my opinion, and this is only one man's opinion, is to use Pokemon combo Starmie would probably be the best idea to go. Starmie, attack first, Ice Beam or Blizzard, something, just nail it straight onto the opponent, and just keep going. When that weather condition hits, it's going to be a lot tougher. Or, if you wanted, you can use a combination of Abomasnow Snow Warning and some very fast ice type like Weavile to do like an Ice Fang and then freeze the target, or just keep crunching all together. Now, does this combo really work? It really depends. Mathematically, you're going to be getting this sequence probably 50-50 because of the ice condition, or the hail as they call it in the video game. It's a lot easier to, the binary code reads hail is an easier way to freeze the opponent. And whether people understand this or not, the video game, when coded, gives a certain way of approaching things when it comes to this. So, in the video game, we're going to be trying to freeze our opponent using a combination of number 2 and number 3, such as Abomasnow and Weavile. Really good combo to stop Politoed because, well, for one, Abomasnow's a grass type, so it's really not going to do too much there. And I mean, Surf just can't do anything. Weavile's way too fast and too powerful for the opponent to keep up with it, so they're going to probably try targeting Weavile overall, and Abomasnow has basically the freedom to do whatever. So, there's my ways around that. Now, do I have any really good rogue stuff for you? You bet. Now, as far as rogues go, probably the best idea would be going with Alakazam. Alakazam is probably one of the most rogue things we have right now. Seeing the condition we have the Politoed matchups, we have the Embor Superior combo and the Superior Similar. We got a bunch of those combos where they want to use the special grass fire move or the special fire water. You know what I mean. Where you go to the I forget it. If you want to know, you just look it up. It one combo with Superior Invor turns the field into fire, turns it into hell, and the water and fire turns it into a rainbow that helps your Pokemon, and water grass turns it into a mossy wetland that slows your opponent's speed down. And I really like these combos overall. Now, as far as I can see, that's probably the number 2 thing we have as far as combos go. Probably the next best combo would be the Tornadus Thunders combo. And really how this works is using the Prankster to their advantage of just using Thunder Wave, boom, boom, paralyze. Now we're going to start hitting you the right way. So they're like start coming after you after giving that stats infliction. The Tornadus will first use Thunder Wave, and then Tornadus would use Thunder Wave, and then they'll hit you with powerful attacks. Once you switch, they'll throw another Thunder Wave at that next Pokemon, and they're just basically going to keep hitting you with the paralysis. It's a very good strategy and a very good combo overall. The only thing is, your opponent can always luck out. And that's really how they end up losing matchups, is your opponent gaining a lot of luck. The next best one that we can see would probably be the Shuckle. I believe Shuckle is probably the next best. I got a whole list right here of the ones most seen, and Shuckle's only been seen 6 times according to the sheet at that one regional. So I'm going to say the old Shuckle combo. Shuckle, how does it work? Well, let's just do it this way. Use Toxic on a Pokemon, then use Protect, then you have a Rest. Right? Then another good one would be Curse. Raise your defense up, or you could always substitute that one spot for a, say, well, if you had XD Gale of Darkness, you had a possible move Refresh, or XD or Colosseum, and it really depends in that matter, because Shuckle's really good when you can get it into a shape like that. Of course, you could always use something such as Encore, but that'd take a whole lot of luck in thinking of what your opponent's going to use the next turn. Because remember, Shuckle moves last. So, regardless what happens, unless there's a slow poke in play, Shuckle's going to move last. It's the slowest Pokemon there. So, we got that down to an advantage. Now, the last, top 5, in my opinion, would probably be touche. Okay. Probably the next best one would be the old Steelix Sandslash combo. Now, how does this work? Well, for one, you got 2 ground type Pokemon, one of them Steel. Now think of this. Both use Dig and both come up. Unless you got a flying type. Then what happens? Rock Slide. And that's basically it. Let's see, this combo's seen 3 times, and overall combined records, whoa, that's pretty good. 21. Okay. I think there might be a mistake there. 21 and 3 with that party scene. It's pretty good. And this is all across the US. People actually use Steelix and Sandslash, and I tested the combo myself, which is pretty good. Basically, both of them have pretty good defense, special defense. They use Dig and then attack. They pretty much got a pretty good attack, and then Steelix has got the ability to rock Throw and Rock Slide a lot easier, being evolved from Onyx, rock ground. So, and thinking that the opponent has levitate. So, how will this work out for him? Well, I'm sure every one of you have heard of the move Gravity. Gravity is probably the best move I've ever seen for Pokemon with like Levitate and Flying type moves overall, but most Flying type Pokemon you can just target with Rock Slide and just totally destroy them. Because Rock Slide targets both opponent's Pokemon at one time, so you'd potentially be getting 2 Rock Slides in at once, and you're just killing your opponent. It's kind of like Tornadus Thunders, just not as well played, because every other turn your opponent's attacking unless they're using something like Earthquake, say for instance. And in instances where your opponent figures out that they're using Earthquake, or the potential for Earthquake lies, you'll have most Pokemon like, say, Steelix, just going out and using either Crunch or Iron Tail. What would Sandslash do in this situation? Well, Sandslash isn't weak to that, but more likely it's going to be using Sand Attack over and over and over. Now, I could go on and pick a 6th one, and I'm not going to, so we're going to get straight to the rogue stuff. Number 1, rogue Pokemon I know of, dun 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 dun, Marowak. Marowak is a beast when playing it. No one even figures. Okay? Marowak has a base stat total of 420, and that's why most people deny using Marowak. When you give Marowak a Thick Club, its base attack goes from 0 to hero. Pretty much. So, a Marowak that has perfect IVs and EVs and a helpful nature in attack, along with a Thick Club, has a potential attack higher than Deoxys. So, and this is only with the Thick Club itself. So, what are we assuming from this? Well, Marowak is a pretty good candidate to come out as a rogue build. And probably the best thing about it is that Marowak's Boomerang or Bone Club is a signature move. And unless it's an egg move from another Pokemon, it's really not going to see too much effect. And because Marowak enjoys that ground type stab or a same type attack bonus of 1.5, you would notice that Marowak gets this attack off a lot easier and a lot more effective. So potentially you're looking at a base attack in regular Pokemon standards, a Marowak with a usual about 284, let's just say 420 base attack if you did it right with writing, and this is including the Thick Club, and this is including the power bonus for the stab, and then something like Boomerang or say Bone Club, Thick Club if that's what it's called. And people won't ever even see this coming yet, and I guarantee Marowak can get a few good knockouts just by one blow. One single blow, Marowak's got that game won. And its best stat is defense, so it'll have no trouble with the defensive side. Special defense is going to be an issue though, so special defense should be something to up along with the attack. And defense, you can just mosey on that a little if you want, or focus on HP some. But overall, if you're going to search it for an IV yield, you probably want it to have low special attack IVs when trying to breed it out, or if you're playing Argold Soul Silver, you're trying to catch it with eyes of 31 across the board, with the exception of the special attack. And if you really wanted hidden type, I'd probably say your hidden power type should be a grass. It's probably your best shot. If you want it to be dragon, you can. I've even seen a few people that choose grass type and they want ice types to go against the grass types because they're more effective. But I would probably say get something like a grass type to settle in for all of those water types that you see on the field, such as the Politoed Ludicolo combo. But, moreover or not, you're not going to really see that. But you've also got Thunder Punch in case you need another better attack. But most of the time, you're just going to be using Earthquake, Rock Slide, Boomerang, and then another either attack. Usually going to be Bone Club or Bone Club. So, in that matter of point, Marowak is probably the most rogue strategy we have, and we need to take great caution in using it. Because if people don't want to use it, we'll use it. And if you're going to the video game regionals, I highly consider using Marowak, or at least testing it. You will be pleasantly surprised by how well it fools people and how well it really dominates the first two turns before your opponent starts recognizing what happens. By then, it's too late. But if your opponent's smart enough, like me, to figure out what Marowak does, and they look at Marowak and know you're going to start with it, they're going to be able to beat that combo by removing your Thick Club, which is not too hard, using something like Knockoff or Thief Attack. I think that's what it's called. TM46 is Thief. I'm not sure if it's Black and White, but I know it's hard on Silver. But anyway, something like that. Number 2, the most rogue Pokemon we have was Marowak. What is number 2? Well, no Pokemon compares to Marowak in its playability. So, what can we really say is another good candidate to fall behind Marowak? My answer for you would be Grumpig. Grumpig. Why Grumpig? Well, Grumpig's got so many great options working for it. Y'all probably have never heard of the move Magic Coat. Magic Coat is probably one of the best attacks I have ever seen getting rid of certain attacks and how they're affected by. So, something like Magic Coat on Grumpig, along with Trick Room to go along with its speed, that'd match it perfectly with other slow Pokemon with 0 speed IVs and no speed EVs and a hindering nature. And we're looking at probably one of the best Pokemon I've ever seen in my life. And along with this, you can also put a few more tricks in Grumpig other than Trick Room and Magic Coat. You could say, possibly, Confuse Ray would be another great way of dealing with so some of the stuff that it has to deal with. And being Grumpig, you really got to think you got the Psychic type advantage of using the Trick Room. Use Psychic. You have a Psychic type attack called Psychic as your other attack, and you'll pretty much be good to go with the moveset Magic Coat, Trick Room, Confuse Ray, and last but not least, Psychic. Now, how could we make this a good combo? Well, for starters, you could very well do this with Marowak in a combo. It really would work, but I'd highly suggest using other Pokemon that are a lot slower and make a lot better partners like Dusknoir. And why Dusknoir? Because with 100 attack or base attack and 45 base HP that you can easily get up to about 150 max on level 50, really does help in a few ways and hinders a lot more. But probably say most of all, the Duskmon is probably the best candidate just because of its ghost type, along with Grumpig's psychic type. Say that for instance, because your opponent would have to think of some great dark type moves to come up against both of you. But chances are you've got a ghost type such as Duskmon or any other Pokemon that has a few tricks up their sleeves to defeat these few dark types. And there's a few other Pokemon that I want to talk about before this video's over, and how they pair well against. The third one, which I'm going to get to, is Scizor. Scizor, being a metal bug type, has so many great advantages versus the Trick Room. Because Scizor itself becomes slow after evolving from Scyther and raises its defense a whole lot more, you can also up its special defense and attack a lot more than it already is. Seeing how Scizor is just that much better after evolving really does tell about how to use it. So, how do we use it? Well, number one, you gotta think. Bug types are very helpful against Trick Room type Pokemon that are psychic, and even the ones that defeat the psychic type, such as Dark type. And we got a few like Ludicolo, quote unquote, that really can't fare well against bug types because of being grass type. So, therefore, the Politoed Ludicolo combo goes bad because of the U-turn attack or an X's or something, some bug type move that really puts the hit on Ludicolo, and without using a special attack, rather a physical attack to complement for Ludicolo's lack in defense, as opposed to its amazing special defense for its stabs. So, and we're gonna focus on something like that when we're using Scizor. We'd focus on one bug type move, which is a physical type, one steel type move, which is physical type, and a Swords Dance just to raise the attack, just in case our opponent has a high defense. We want to be able to counter their opponent's measures. So, in all return, we have an overall great Pokemon that can work well with Grumpig or Marowak, or along with any other Pokemon that doesn't really hurt Scizor, such as Abomasnow or some other Pokemon. And last but not least, because I don't want to give 5, it'd take way too much time for me to explain the 5th one. The 4th one, believe it or not, and most of you probably wouldn't believe it for a thing in the world, the number 4 Pokemon is Snorlax. Snorlax is almost never seen. My favorite Pokemon is, one of my opinions, to be one of the best rogue Pokemon out. Why? I'll tell you why. You have so many great combos that we've had so far, and I could name all the most potential metagame strategies and focus on why Snorlax gains an advantage from every single one of them. Politoed, Ludicolo, Drizzle, and a bunch of healing attacks by Ludicolo. Well, Drizzle, this totally allows Snorlax to use so many viable water type attacks that are so physical, or that are physical water type attacks that are so brutal that will put a beating on certain Pokemon. Of course, you have the potential for Thunder if you decided to give Snorlax the modest nature and let it gain a type in the special attack. Most people wouldn't. The biggest reason I'll mention Snorlax is because Snorlax has that potential against Ludicolo. Now, why Ludicolo? Well, for actually plenty of reasons. May I remind you that Ludicolo is a grass and water type. That means it's not only is it water, it's grass too. So, Starts learn any really good bug types? No. Can it learn any good poison types? No. Can it learn any good flying types? No. Aerial Ace? Well, for that matter, get Snorlax something really good.